Hello and welcome back to another Doctor Who Big Finish video. In today's Doctor Who Big Finish video I'll be reviewing Daughter of the Gods. Basically a what if Doctor Who had a 5-year anniversary special. Now this is the last story in the early adventures of Series 6, which I kind of feel like Big Finish is slowly wrapping up the early adventures in a way, and I feel like this is Big Finish's way of sort of closing the early adventures off. Which is a bit of a shame because I love the early adventures. I think the early adventures is a wonderful range. Because obviously Series 5 we had 4 stories, but Series 6 we had 2 stories, so I believe that they are dwindling the releases down. I mean, if the early adventures do carry on, then I guess it'll be sort of more of a, 2 releases per series, much like, Series 6 instead of like a full run of 4 stories, which is a bit of a shame, because, I love the early adventures. Now this release is very intriguing because we have the return of Katarina. Yes, the first companion to die. That's a bit of a spoiler, but this is a very intriguing story because we never thought Big Finish would recast Katarina. We thought we'd probably have Dodo stories before Katarina, but here we are. We have Katarina, and I have to say that this is a very intriguing story involving Katarina. So if you're a big fan of the Daleks Master Plan, then this is definitely a story what should be on your radar. So without further ado, let's look at the presentation for this release, and then we'll go into my thoughts on Daughter of the Gods. So, taking a look at the presentation for Daughter of the Gods, so we've got the Supreme Dalek there, 2 Daleks, the Doctor Who logo, the second Doctor, Jamie and Zoe, then we've got this nice sort of second Doctor Vortex there, which is rather cool, the first Doctor Stephen and Katarina, and we have the first Doctor Vortex there, and the building from Arbinia, and then Daughter of the Gods, the side of the release, and the back of the release there. So if you want to know more about the story, then do feel free to pause, and we've got the cast list and the total running time being 120 minutes. So taking a look at the leaflet now, we have production credits for the actual release there, and we've got a cast photo, and then the reversible cover there if you want to have the second Doctor logo on the cover. And the disc art is exactly the same for both discs. Daughter of the God acts as a what-if story if Doctor Who had a 5-year special, and I think David K. Barnes did an excellent job since he wrote the fan favourite early adventure, The Dalek Occupation of Winter, so it seemed perfect sense for him to write another early adventure. So, does lightning strike twice? Well, in this case, absolutely. This is a beautiful story driven by its characters, with it truly being a love letter to 60s Who, capturing what made it so special, the Daleks and 2 magical doctors. Focusing on the impact Katarina had made on the first Doctor, leading to heartwarming scenes with the story offering horrifying glimpses of what if the Doctor never arrived on Kemble, and the ripple effect that has on the universe. So this story, for me personally, is definitely a highlight of Big Finish's catalogue from 2019. Part 1. Now this part is very much told from the perspective of the second Doctor, as it starts off rather charming with the Doctor, Jamie and Zoe exploring the TARDIS looking for the kitchen. But instead they find this mysterious door. But what is behind this mysterious door? In fact, it's just a broom cupboard full of the Doctor's collection, so all manner of stuff comes crashing out, leading to a really fun scene with the Doctor playing with a remote control car, which is just rather joyous because it really captures the whimsical nature of 60s Doctor Who. And I feel like this scene really shows, how well the Doctor and Jamie get on, and Zoe sort of keeping them both in check as Zoe reconnects this time vortex detector or detects other crafts within the vortex. But suddenly it detects another craft within the vortex and it's heading straight for the TARDIS, which leads to a very incredible tense scene as the ship crashes into the TARDIS, leading to the Doctor hearing voices, so you're wondering whose voice is the Doctor hearing. So the TARDIS materialises on the planet Arbinia, with the TARDIS dematerialisation circuit being burnt out, and the Doctor and co off to find a laboratory to fix it. So we get some excellent world building with this sort of green sky with these massive glass skyscrapers, but the people of the planet Arbinia are all stampeding towards the spaceport as the planet is being bombarded by something, as the city starts to burst into flames and ruins as death rains down from the sky. So the Doctor and Zoe get caught up in the stampede and they lose Jamie, where Jamie encounters this strange girl called Katarina, with the Doctor and Zoe being at the spaceport, with the Doctor being shocked to see Stephen Taylor there, with the cliffhanger really leaving you with loads of questions. You're really wondering what on earth is happening with this story. Part 2. Now this part is very much told from the point of the first Doctor, Stephen and Katarina, as it starts off very eerie with these distorted voices as Katarina has glimpses of the underworld with the TARDIS crash. So we see how the first Doctor and team link into the adventure towards the latter half of this part. start. So we see how the Doctor and co have settled into this society, with the Doctor and Stephen and Katerina having an apartment, with the Doctor bringing, you know, all these officials back and having a little party, leading to a bit of an atmosphere at breakfast between the Doctor and Stephen, which is quite fun to see those two characters spar, and we have some great one-liners from the Doctor. We have the Doctor teaching on the planet, with us getting a little reference to the Entanglement, one of the early adventures from the last series. So we continue to world build as we expand on the society of Arbinia, with this being a planet of learning, with the Doctor getting some really beautiful scenes with Katerina, with him talking about how she's progressed. But soon the Doctor is called to a meeting as a signal from a neighbouring planet is in trouble, as you see their leader aged to death. So if you know the Daleks' master plan, you might be thinking, well, this doesn't really add up, as you get little hints. So this is when the Daleks are revealed and the evacuation of Arbinia begins as the first Doctor takes charge, which ties into when the second Doctor arrives, when everyone is rushing to the spaceport, and we have a rather bleak cliffhanger as the Daleks begin the harvest of Arbinia. Part 3, so this is when the Doctors finally meet, and this is when the story can actually progress now. We've all fully caught up with how both Doctors have got entangled in this story. Now this does feel very 60s Dalek action, this part for me, as the Daleks begin exterminating the population, with it being described very eerily as, you know, their guns are twitching to exterminate, with them lurking in the streets. So this is a very tense part as the ships aren't ready to launch, and Zoe is getting, you know, coordinates, you know, ready to avoid the Dalek fleet. And, you know, the second Doctor starts to question, you know, the first Doctor, you know, going, you know, where's Vic? You know, the second Doctor saying, well, I've never been to the planet Arbinia before, and he realises, you know, something's going on with time. The second Doctor saying, you know, you should be on Kemble, as we find out that the first Doctor didn't go to Kemble, and the Daleks can now use the Time Destructor, as the second Doctor tells the first Doctor about what happened to Katerina. So there is quite a bit of bickering between the two characters and arguing, you know, between the two Doctors, and Jamie gets some really nice character moments with Katerina, you know, sort of explaining her beliefs, and it all leads to a very tense cliffhanger. So I think this part is brilliant because it really does play between the second Doctor and the first Doctor really well. It is a really good part, this. Part 4, so you wonder what purpose do the Daleks want Jamie and Katerina for, as the Daleks continue to attack, with us getting some good old Pyroflame Dalek action. You know, you've got people cowering in fear, which really helps add to the sort of fear factor. I think that really does add to the fear factor of the Daleks, really. I think that's a really good moment. You know, you've got some great Dalek image, you know, with the Daleks bursting into flames. We have a thrilling confrontation with the first Doctor and the Daleks, and we have the Time Destructor being unleashed on the planet, and we have a real standout moment with the second Doctor talking to Katerina about her dreams, which is so touching, leading to them to make a choice, leading to the Doctors to speak to one another about remorse, and, you know, the effect Katerina had, you know, leading to the second Doctor, Jamie, Zoe and Katerina to put things right, as, you know, Katerina has to make a choice, and, you know, the first Doctor and Stephen are left there for them to sort of give them time for their plan to work. So moving on to characters now, with Fraser Hines playing the second Doctor. Now Fraser Hines does a marvellous job capturing the second Doctor, from the dry coughs, with him clearing his throat, with him, you know, we see some great funny moments with his sort of comedic side of him playing with his remote control car, with him being very protective over his collection, which I think as Doctor Who fans can relate, being very protective over our collections, and him bickering with the first Doctor and him being quite furious with Jamie and Zoe and his sort of early incarnation. We see his sense of adventure, but also how frightened he is. What was a key thing for the second Doctor was Patrick Troughton really did sell the threat of the story, and I think that Fraser Hines really did capture that side to the second Doctor, because this story really does sell his fear of the Daleks. And we see his incredibly caring nature for Katerina, because we get a beautiful similar scene to the Tomb of the Cybermen moment when he's talking about his family to Victoria, but I think this is a really nice little scene between the second Doctor and Katerina. Jamie, played by Fraser Hines, another brilliant performance of him being sort of the action hero and being very protective and caring towards Katerina, with him having some brilliant scenes as they find a common ground. And we have, you know, the classic Jamie Sarky lines to the Doctor, which is brilliant. You know, he's still amazed by things, which is really nice, you know, with him discovering more about the TARDIS. And we see his fondness for the second Doctor, which is really nice for him to sort of talk about how fond he is of the Doctor. Zoe, played by Wendy Padbury. Now Wendy Padbury does an excellent job. This is a really good performance by Wendy Padbury, because this is a brilliant story for Zoe, as we see her total recall of her memory, you know, with her counting coordinates and trying to memorise the streets of Arbinia, you know, with her calculating the coordinates of her ships to escape. You know, she's very logical with her trying to find a solution, you know, with her keeping the Doctor and Jamie in line. But I think the story, she really does shine in the latter half of the story, especially when her and Stephen team up to sort of defeats some of the Daleks. It's just a really nice moment, that is. So moving on to the First Doctor, played by Peter Purves. Now Peter Purves does an excellent job as ever capturing William Hartnell from the stern authority to the more twinkle side, to the more of the magical twinkle that Hartnell Doctor had. So we have some great funny lines to the rather beautiful scenes with Katarina saying how she's developed and he can't wait to show Katarina more wonders of the universe, which makes it rather bittersweet if you're familiar with how Katarina sort of ends in the Daleks' master plan. With us learning of how he works, with him sort of seeking to help others and apply logic, but the First Doctor, you know, really does take charge when the Daleks are on their way and we get sort of the sense of fear from him. You know, and he's very determined to make sure that the evacuation works, and you know, we have his classic stubbornness, especially towards the end when the Second Doctor tells, you know, the First Doctor, you know, this is what's going to have to happen. So it's a really nice story for the First Doctor, really. Stephen Taylor, played by Peter Purves. Now Peter Purves just effortlessly slips back into the role, as this is another solid story for Stephen, with him working on the spaceships, with this work being beneath his skill set, so he's a bit grumpy about that, you know, but he's quite sharp and sarky towards the Doctor. And we see him sort of take care of the First Doctor by calming him down, especially towards the latter half of the story. And he does the same for Katarina. Katarina, played by AJ Awad, does a superb job recreating Katarina, and this story really does allow Katarina to shine, as this story is essentially about her and her dreams of the underworld. You know, so why does she keep thinking she's dead, you know, and she's quite skittish and scared about the situation, and you know, she thinks that the TARDIS is a temple, you know, the place of perfection. And you know, she still thinks the Doctor's a god. I think that this is a really good story for Katarina, because it really does explore her more as a character. So what are my concluding thoughts on Daughter of the Gods? Well, I think that it is a beautifully crafted story what links together beautifully. This genuinely does feel like a love letter to the early days of Doctor Who, from the whimsical Second Doctor era to the sense of adventure in the William Hartnell era, with the story playing with the theme of loss and what impact Katarina had on the Doctor, with it being a very rich character piece, with the Daleks being a great addition, as Nick Briggs really is channeling his inner Peter Hawkins. It's definitely one of the best Big Finish releases from 2019. It's just absolutely brilliant, and does raise some interesting questions of, you know, what if the Doctor didn't do certain events, you know, what if he didn't go to Kemble, what impact would that have on the universe, you know, and what happens if Katarina did survive. So it has some rich themes and topics explored throughout. I think one of the key factors for this story as well is that you have a basic understanding for the Daleks master plan, so you understand what events happened within it, because this story does sort of rely on that in a way, especially in terms of Katarina. I feel like you can enjoy the story without experiencing the Daleks master plan, but I think if you want to get the full enjoyment out of this, then I think you have to be familiar to the Daleks master plan. But I think that this is a beautiful story, and it is a great little celebration of, you know, 60s Doctor Who. I think that it is marvellous. I absolutely love Daughter of the Gods, and it's just an absolute treat. It's just a story I could just listen to over and over again. I think that it is really brilliant. It's got some really great tense moments. You know, especially the build up to the Daleks arriving on the planet, you know, them bombarding the planet and, you know, death raining from the sky. It's just absolutely wonderful. It is a really good story, full of rich character moments, and it's just really good. It is a really well crafted story of how the Second Doctor and First Doctor link into the story. It's just really well structured story. So I'm going to give this story a 10 out of 10. I love it. I think Daughter of the Gods is a brilliant celebration of 60s Doctor Who. I think that it is marvellous. I think that it's great. The Daleks are great. But I think, you know, if you're after a solid Dalek story, you might not get it with this. I feel like you'll probably get it more in the Dalek Occupation of Winter. I think that this story is more for... I think that the Daleks are a nice little addition, but you come for the... You know, I think that the reason you come to listen to this story is for the characters, because it is very much a character piece story. The Daleks are a nice little addition within the story, but what makes this story great is because of the characters, and I think that David K. Barnes did a brilliant job with that. So yeah, I'm going to give Daughter of the Gods a 10 out of 10. I hope you've enjoyed this Big Finish review, and I'll see you next time. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. So thank you very much, and goodbye.